I was a 350-pound board-certified doctor who grew up in an obese household his whole life, tried to escape his whole life, couldn't, and somebody who really struggled. It's not for a lack of discipline or willpower. I was able to go to med school, and I love to exercise. Finally, it was really my wife who said, "You're going to die." And then, you go into the literature and you just find out it's just a crock of hope. Eat whole grains and, count your calories. It was all lies. How does calorie counting work against other diets? And I looked at the trials head to head, and it always did worse. It did worse even than the worst diet, which is low-fat diet. Well, how does low-fat food pyramid diet do against other diets? And then you see that it does literally the worst against low-carb diets. I lost weight literally just going to the nutrition literature and doing what it said was actually best, not what the ivory tower public health message was. And to give you an example of how corrupt and backwards it still is today, to give you an example, the CDC in 2023 changed.
Hey there, welcome to the Happy Habit Podcast. I'm Matthew. You'll find me here every week talking health and well-being. If you're already familiar with this podcast series and have gotten any value at all from any of the episodes, please show your support, like, subscribe, and share news of this podcast with other like-minded people. A reminder, we're also on YouTube, aiming for 3,000 YouTube subscribers in the coming weeks. Hopefully you can help me get there, but I need you to hit that subscribe button if you'd like to do so. You can show me support for absolutely free. Now, as you will know, I talk to medical experts on a regular basis about diet, nutrition, and exercise. Today, I speak with a doctor who has his own obesity story. He's an obesity expert, but he's also someone who has had his own obesity issues, having weighed at one point 350 pounds. He gives me his view on what is driving the obesity crisis today and how metabolic disease is being made worse by the official guidelines that are being laid out by bodies like the CDC, the Centre of Disease Control, which Dr. Tro believes does not follow the actual science. Adhering to the scientific research on nutrition, metabolism, and weight loss saw Dr. Tro lose over 150 pounds and keep it off. His mission now is to spread the word about how to achieve a healthy weight. And newsflash, it does not involve the counting of calories. We talk about the macronutrient breakdown that promotes weight loss. We explore the flaw in the calories in, calories out model of weight loss. We talk LDL cholesterol and the importance of getting the support of a good doctor who knows and understands nutrition. This is a really eye-opening conversation with a man who has lived the obesity crisis both as a patient and as a doctor. I hope you enjoy. Well, Dr. Tro, you are exactly the kind of person my audience needs to hear from, because not only are you a weight loss doctor, but you have a deeply personal weight loss journey, having lost something like 150 pounds in weight yourself. Could you tell me about this?
Thanks for bringing me on. I saw the long list of people that have been on your show, and I was just so impressed. All these people that I really look up to, and people that I consider my heroes. So first of all, I'm just honored to be included in that list. I was a 350-pound doctor. I had calorie information memorized since the age 13. And I say age 13 because I grew up in an obese household. Every single person in my family was obese. By the time I was 13, I was already 200 pounds, 100 kilos, right? My older brother was 350 pounds at the age of 14. He was a year older than me. My mom suffered with obesity and diabetes her whole life. And my father also was obese and had heart disease. So age 13, I went to the doctor's office, and the doctor's like, "You're fat." Looked at me straight in the eye. That's what he said. And he's like, "Count your calories." So I memorized calorie information because the doctor told me to. And I remember wanting to be a doctor literally at that moment, 13. And then I gained 10 pounds a year from the age 13 all the way to age 30. And I ended up going through med school, trying to figure out how I could beat the gene, and I did what was suggested of me. I ate whole wheat bread. I had brown rice. I had, bran muffins. I had kashi cereal. I had, I did what was suggested of me. I could recite the calories, the nutrition label of any food. I mean, I have a photographic memory that's just near photographic memory. Numbers I can spit off the top of my head. So I find myself in med school gaining weight, and my colleagues asking me to count calories, and I'm like, guys, you don't understand. I have it memorized, right? And then I go off to residency in the United States. After med school, you go to residency for 3 years as an internal medicine resident. And then I was chief resident, which in the United States is like a sort of honorable leadership role. And I'm just gaining weight. And then, I get married throughout that time. And finally, it was really my wife who said, "You're going to die. I'm worried you're going to die." She was pregnant with our third kid, and she said, "Are you going to be there? Are you going to be able to be there for him? And why can't you figure this out?" She totally played me. She's like, "Tro, you got the 90th percentile in your board exam. You're a smart doctor. Can't you figure this out?" And that's when my journey started. I was a 350-pound board certified doctor who grew up in an obese household his whole life, tried to escape his whole life, couldn't, and somebody who really struggled. It's not for a lack of discipline or willpower. I was able to go to med school, and I love to exercise. I mean, I remember in high school, gosh, I was on the cross country team, track. I always loved exercise. I was the slow fat guy, so that was me. And that's where my journey started as the 350-pound doc whose wife really challenged him to figure this out. And then, you go into the literature and you just find out it's just a crock of bull. It's a crock of baloney, all of it. It's on a house of cards. Nutrition science is sitting on a house of cards. All the things that I was told, eat whole grains and, count your calories. It was all lies. It was all lies. Public health propaganda. I can't be more clear. And this is how I found out. I didn't just find out. Like, I didn't go to this and go into the literature. I mean, I'm a evidence-based board certified internist. I didn't go into this thinking I'm going to find something wrong. I'm just trying to help myself. And then you start to see the lies unfold one by one. I just went and said, how does calorie counting work against other diets? And I looked at the trials head to head, and it always did worse. It did worse even than the worst diet, which is low-fat diets, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, how does low-fat food pyramid diets do against other diets? And then you see that it does literally the worst against low-carb diets. So my journey started when I started to question the narrative around what we've been told about nutrition by public health, by the public health in the public health domain, and by medicine at large. And to give you an example of how corrupt and backwards it still is today, to give you an example, the CDC in 2023 changed its diabetes website. It used to say in diabetes, patients should have 50% of their food from carbohydrates. That's what the CDC website said in 2023. It wasn't until I screenshotted it and said, this is malpractice, and it went completely viral, that did they change that. You can go to the Wayback Time Machine. You can go to the diabetes carb counting webpage and see when they changed. The CDC changed the carb counting sort of narrative that had been on their site since inception. So, and this is just a small example of the entrenchment our public health domain and our doctors are in. They don't understand nutrition. It's largely built on a house of cards. And when I finally figured that out, when I finally understood after reading 3 obesity textbooks, maybe 300 books on diet, and over 3,000 articles, primary articles on nutrition, remember I'm an absorber of info, then I see it's a lot easier than what I was told my whole life. And that's when I lost weight. That's when I lost weight, literally just going to the nutrition literature and doing what it said was actually best, not what the ivory tower public health message was. I had no axe to grind. I just wanted to get healthy for myself and my family. That's it.
So it was the epiphany came then after you had that conversation with your wife when she was expecting your third child. This prompted you diving into all of the research, because I know you're a student of medicine and a student of science. As you said, you're a sponge and you soak up all of this information. And you have also said that you were a product of the standard American diet. So you are evidence-based, and your body was the evidence that the standard American diet wasn't working for you and it's not working for other people. So all of this accumulated to prompt your moving in a different direction as far as your own diet was concerned. And this is when you adopted the low carbohydrate or the keto approach to food. Is that correct?
Yeah. And it was almost immediate. And it didn't look pretty at first. I mean, it was like chicken breast and Greek yogurt at first. And then, that happened for a year, and some protein bars here and there. And second year, like a little bit more meat, a little bit more eggs, and tons of green leafy vegetables. And now, I mean, I pretty much eat meat, fish, chicken, eggs, Greek yogurt, green leafy vegetables. That's it. It's pretty much all I eat. Occasionally, I'll have like a little almond flour treat that my wife may cook up, or an ice cream with heavy cream and sweetener, but those are rare. I mean, I've really dropped all those. So I don't want to say that the weight loss has been effortless, but it's not been hard. It's not been hard.
And just as far as time frame is concerned, because you alluded to accumulating 10 pounds per year over a decade, which contributed to you being 350 pounds in weight. How quickly did you see your body begin to change when you adopted this new nutrition regime, for want of a better term?
I lost 70 pounds the first year, 60 pounds the second year, and another 10, 15 pounds in the third year. And those 10, 15 pounds, they come and they go. When it's beach season and I eat a little less frequently, I go down a little bit in weight. And in the winters, maybe I go a little up in weight. So I still, I bounce up and down from that low point. When I'm at a photo shoot, when I'm going to do a photo shoot, I'm gonna get a little bit leaner than I normally would, or when I'm, have a 5K coming up, and so my training volume will increase. And I tend to lean out for those things. So yeah, but pretty much 3 years it took to get to that weight, and 70 pounds the first year, really, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, it was pretty quick. And this was like maybe 9.5 years ago, almost 10 years ago, when my wife really started to be worried,
And is it true you haven't eaten bread since, 9 years ago at this stage?
Yeah, I haven't had bread. I haven't had a banana in 9 years. I haven't had an orange in 9 years. I haven't peeled a banana and eaten it. I haven't opened a box of cereal.
And are you happier for that change that you made? Because people might say in the comments, you're stripping joy and enjoyment of foods and some foods out of your life and out of your diet. Can you speak about the benefits now that you see over and above the loss in weight and the improvement in health that you've enjoyed since you made that change?
A loss of joy. Well, here's the problem. When it hurts to walk, when you sleep but aren't rested, when you're inflamed and just you're unwell, I mean, you can't forget that. You cannot forget that. So is it a loss of joy? Well, certainly. I remember being a 4-year-old kid and running away from my mom in the supermarket, and she doesn't know this, when going to the ice cream aisle, opening up boxes of popsicles and eating them without a care as a 4-year-old kid. I remember being a 5-year-old kid and my grandma would put sugar in skim Greek yogurt and cut up whole wheat bread, pita bread, and throw it in there. And that would be like a meal that she would give us, right? Do I miss eating that because of nostalgia, the memories, and the joy it brings me when I think of those moments that I had in my childhood? Yeah, okay, but I can enjoy those memories without that food. Here I am thinking about my grandma, and thinking about being a kid with long hair running down the aisles of the supermarket. So, I can still have that nostalgia without the food. I'm not looking for food for enjoyment. I'm not looking for, I don't need a drug to make myself feel good. If I wanted it, here's the other fact. There's nobody in the world that would stop me from eating it, right? If I wanted the bread or I wanted the banana, I would eat it, right? And I would still try to be insanely healthy. I just have no desire. I have no, why would I bring it back? If you're an alcoholic and you got rid of alcohol, is this joy robbed out of your life? Yeah, it really sucks not being able to drink and go to the bar and laugh with your friends. But I'm sure you're very happy to get rid of alcohol out of your life because you're more productive, you feel good, your family's proud of you and happy about you. And instead of wasting 3 hours in a bar, maybe you're wasting 2 hours in a gym and 1 hour walking. So it's a really tricky question. And the essence of that question is in feeling of deprivation, right? So the essence of that question is, Tro, how do you manage your feeling of deprivation? If I felt deprived, right? If I wanted bread, I would take almond flour, psyllium husk, mix it together, put some eggs and avocado oil, and make a bread that was lower in carbohydrate. And I would eat that, right? Or I'd buy one. There's plenty of people now that make breads like that you can just purchase, right? They're very low glycemic. I would toast it up. I'd put some butter on it, and I would get close to recreating that. So no joy robbed. I mean, most people eat bread for the butter or the cream cheese they put on top, right? So, or the whatever's in the sandwich, right? That they're using that bread for. So, no, the essence of that question is, are you deprived? And the answer is no.
Great answer. And I really love that analogy that you bring in, comparing this to someone who is an alcoholic, for example, and that whole notion of deprivation. I think that's such a superb answer and spoken from the heart and from personal experience. You mentioned already some foods there. Can we just dig a little bit deeper into the macronutrient breakdown that has brought so much success to you as far as your diet is concerned?
Yeah, just zero to low carb, right? It's 0 to low carb, no other really restriction. When my training volume is high, so when my exercise volume is high, it'll be higher protein and more frequent eating. When my training volume is low, it's much less frequent eating and really no concern for protein at all. So that's it. It's just low carb. That's it. There's nothing special. It's not high fat. It's not high protein. It fluctuates based on really my training volume. If I'm not exercising, I may not even eat that day. I'm not hungry. Usually, like I'm baseline not hungry until I eat. So, like we were in Disney with my family for a vacation. We went there and I didn't eat for like 36 hours. I was like, okay, there's nothing here for me to eat anyway. I might as well not eat. And then we went to a restaurant and I ate, so there's an example there. When I'm, when my training volume is really high, I'm now in this mode to prepare for a 5K. And I'm really doing a lot of resistance training. My protein needs are a bit higher. And I feel that. I mean, my body's calling for food, so I may eat, twice in a day. And one of those meals will be higher protein and the other meal will be, like a standard dinner, like a piece of protein and what did we have yesterday? We had sirloin and green beans. It would look like that. So if you ask Troy macros, I don't honestly, I don't know, but the only macro I know is my carbs are ridiculously.
What by way of dietary fat then would you consume? I spoke with Dr. Dom D'Agostino, who consumes a higher proportion of fat on his keto version of his diet. And he says as a result of that, his LDL is higher, so he has to take some medication in order to bring that down a bit. That is something I've heard from other people who ascribe to a very low, if no carbohydrate diet, so they have to bring their calories up by having higher levels of healthy dietary fat. So what are your thoughts in relation to this?
Well, so I published studies on this. I mean, it's a very complex topic, but when you lose weight with a very low carbohydrate diet, you can guarantee that your cholesterol, your LDL, and your good and bad cholesterol will go up. Okay. Meaning like if you're very overweight, so if you're me at 350 pounds, my LDL it went down from 350 pounds to 250 pounds. Okay. My cholesterol dropped. My triglycerides dropped, total cholesterol dropped, everything dropped. Under 250 pounds, and particularly under 220 pounds, my LDL starts to rise up. Okay. And if you look at meta-analysis data, this is consistent in the literature. If you're overweight and you adopt a low-carb diet, your cholesterol will uniformly improve, quote unquote. If you get very lean, particularly under a BMI of 30, particularly under a BMI of 25, your cholesterol will rise. And at that point, you have two options, typically. One, you can risk stratify, get a coronary artery calcium score, do an ultrasound of your arteries, look for plaques, see if your risk is high. And if so, take a medication. And in Dom's case, he takes Zetia or ezetimibe. He's not my patient. He's talked about it on lectures, so it's not like I'm disclosing anything, new. But your other option is to reintroduce carbohydrate, small amount of carbohydrate. It could be as little as 25 to 50 grams of carbohydrate will reverse that. If you've been tracking your cholesterol and it was normal when you were heavier and then only increased as you got leaner, then in that case, it's very common that reintroducing carbohydrates will reverse that phenomenon. So there are very few people who will see some improvement. Majority of people will see an improvement with carbohydrate reintroduction at small amount. Don't need much, like 20 grams twice a day, added back. And if you don't, there's some people that really see a robust change, but this is much fewer. If they take like a high dose fiber supplement with their meals, like psyllium husk, and switch to, switch from eggs and meat to fish and chicken, right? There are some people who have that sort of genetic drive that respond to that, but those are fewer. So there's a lot of ways to handle that cholesterol phenomenon. I think carbohydrate reintroduction is the most reliable, but there's some other. Just work with a doctor. If your cholesterol goes through the roof, find a good low-carb doctor, and they'll guide you. They should be able to guide you. This is out there in the literature now, so we published it so people knew what to do. Yeah, but does that answer the question?
Oh, absolutely. No, terrific to know. And just that reintroduction of the carbohydrates again, I think is something that will be new to some people, because I know anytime the word cholesterol is mentioned, people become fearful. So to know that you can offset that increase in LDL by a small introduction, a reintroduction of carbohydrates.
We published the case series. In the case series, it was literally half a sweet potato, once or twice a day, or a cup of berries once or twice a day, right? It was not a much, right? It was just enough to, and again, it's the really lean, athletic, triathlon marathoners that are typically going to see the high LDL, or people who have massively lost weight, like myself, who don't want to go back, right? And so they're very strict in their low carbohydrates. It's those people that'll probably see the highest rise in LDL, right? And particularly if it was normal before. So there's a lot of like little nuance and whatever, but just work with a good doc. They can walk you through this. There are people out there that know this, like the back of their hand. You don't need to worry at all. This isn't a worry. If you are worried, the best test to do is a coronary artery calcium score, which is a CAT scan of your heart. The other best test to do is, a carotid ultrasound to look for, and a femoral ultrasound to look for plaque. So if you're worried and you want to execute in a medical fashion to figure out more info, it's very easy. And you can do it in the States, at least, for less than $250, which is not a whole lot. So, but most people, they don't need to worry. They don't need to worry. Some people, we've seen in our clinic, cholesterol levels, you guys use millimolar, but we use milligrams per deciliter and 700, and this is what we published on. So we've seen the world's highest cholesterol, and we brought this gentleman's cholesterol from 700 down to 150, and he's still my patient. So, and he's still quite healthy, and he still has no coronary. His arteries are completely clean. So, I think just don't worry would be my answer, and just work with a good doc would be my second answer.
Well, talking of working with patients, I know you do on a daily basis. Can we talk about people with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes? Is it possible to reverse these conditions through altering diet alone?
So diabetes, right, is basically 3 or 4 different things that we call one thing, right? So everybody is like high blood sugar in the blood, right? What exactly does that mean? Are we absorbing, sugar more efficiently? Are we not disposing it in the muscles and the fat efficiently? Are we not able to make enough insulin to get that blood sugar out of the bloodstream? Is our body not responding to the insulin that we're making, right? And not, opening those channels that drive sugar where it needs to go? Are our muscles and our fat lacking the transporters they need to suck sugar out of the bloodstream? So there's like 4 or 5 different things, right? Typically, if there's and ultimately, I think the biggest thing is the pancreas. If the pancreas is not able to make enough insulin. And that is the primary cause of the diabetes, right? It's very hard to reverse unless it's like this big fatty, pancreas filled with fat and fatty liver, and you lose a bit of weight and that fat clears out. Maybe that pancreas can get a little more efficient and make a little bit more insulin, right? That's a case where you can reverse diabetes. So by and large, if you have prediabetes and diabetes, it's not that it's too far gone. You should be focused on managing the symptoms. The symptom is your body is not able to tolerate carbohydrates. That is the symptom, right? And whether, like if somebody radiated their pancreas, if somebody drank so much about their life that their pancreas doesn't work anymore, a low-carb diet is not going to reverse that, right? It's not going to be able to bring back a zombie pancreas, right? But you're removing the offending agent from an organ that can no longer handle what it needs to keep you healthy. So it's a tricky question because it's a heterogeneous disease, meaning like there's a lot of different factors at play. I will tell you, the more severe the diabetes, the more robust the response to low-carb diets. Meaning, if your A1C is 12, and we published on this, we took people with an A1C of 10 or above that came to us, put them on a low-carb diet, and they didn't lose much weight. They lost like on average 10 pounds, but their A1C went down to 6, right? Which is, went from the most severe diabetes to pre-diabetes, right? So you can, now if those patients go back and start mainlining, cereal and whole wheat bread and rice and brown rice like they were before, like I was before, their A1C goes back. So the question is that reversed? Kind of. So it's a complex medical topic. The idea of reversed is complex. I would call it reversed. Your blood sugar went from 12 to 6 off medications. You are now reversed. You're not diabetic. And the only reason why they're not diabetic is they figured out my body can't handle this and they don't eat it. Some dietitians and scientists want to say, well, no, reversed is only when they can eat it and have a normal response. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that their terminology. So yes, the answer is it can. If you're pre-diabetic and it's very early in disease, it's the biggest chance of complete reversal, meaning like their body can safely tolerate carbohydrates. But it's a case-by-case basis.
You've mentioned A1C. We've spoken about cholesterol, HDL, LDL, calcium scores too. Are there any other important biomarkers that people should be taking control of and monitoring on an ongoing basis?
Work with a good doctor who actually gives a crap. That's it. That's my best advice. Work with a good doctor who actually gives a crap. Blood workers, we check very often, A1C, liver functions, kidney function. We look at nutrient status. We look at, vitamin D, inflammation markers. These are really good to take a look, give an idea of your health. A cholesterol panel, like you mentioned, A1C, glycated albumin. We can get into the weeds of testing, but it's a pretty good amount of blood work. And, we're imminently launching nationwide fingerstick labs. So you could just sit in your home, prick your finger, put a bunch of droplets on a card and mail it in and get some lab results. So yeah, but I think most people, you don't need all that. You just need a good medical doctor, maybe one time a year getting a set of labs. If you have diabetes or, strong family history of heart disease, maybe you do things a little bit different, right? Maybe you're a little bit more aggressive. Maybe you get labs 3 or 4 times a year. And maybe you also get those cardiac imaging that I talked about. It's diabetes management is really comprehensive care. You have to make sure the eyes are healthy, the nerves are healthy, the kidneys are healthy. And when there's a family history of heart disease, you're more apt to consider the coronary artery calcium scan, like we mentioned, the vascular imaging, looking for plaque accumulation. And when you have cholesterol, you're more inclined, high cholesterol, you're more inclined to figure out, well, where is this coming from? Is my body a hyperabsorber of cholesterol? Does it just circulate more cholesterol? Does it produce more cholesterol? This way you can, if you wanted to, address that cholesterol number, you knew more about why the number is not, maybe consistent with the norms. So I think, all of this just needs a good doctor. That's it. It's tough to standardize it, but it needs a good doctor.
It's interesting. You keep coming back to that statement about needing a good doctor. I know you've said before you want to be the doctor you wished you had had.
Yeah. We have, it's interesting. We can go into my practice, but so we have two doctors, a physician's assistant, 4 health coaches, and we leverage a lot of remote monitoring. So we have, biometric scales. So if you're a patient with us, you have a scale, a blood pressure cuff, a continuous glucose monitor, a ketone meter in your home, and that links directly to us. You have a dedicated health coach that's checking in on you once a month minimum, right? We have an app where we engage. We have classes you can just come into. You want to know more about low carb? There's a free class. You want to know more about fasting? There's a free class you can just pop into. Live classes always going on. We have full modules on coronary artery calcium scores, how to use the CGM, what you should look out for, diabetes. We have, full fleshed out courses that you can just take at your own time, and we have 12,000 people on that app. So it's a really robust community. We have challenges on that app that all of our patients sort of can opt into. So, I'm trying to build a practice that, like, why should you wait to see your doctor? Why should you regain weight, feel the shame, the blame, and sort of, why do you have to go through that? Wait months before the doctor knows that you've regained weight. Why wouldn't you give him the opportunity or her the opportunity to intervene within a month? Hey, we see things are going the other way. Can we help you? So yeah, that's the idea of our practice, is how do we, look, you probably drive a car. I drive a car. My car's got a check engine light, a check tire light. It's got a service. I can just press a button and the service comes, right? And they're there to help me, I don't, and me as a driver, I don't get a flat tire and just keep going and hide from my medical team. My mechanic. I don't do that. Right. So how do we get patients to opt in to this idea of hey, we are like mechanics. The minute something goes wrong, just come help us. This is our purpose. Right. How do we dismantle the shame, the guilt, the that keeps, the self-blame and the, how do we dismantle those things that keep patients away from their doctors when they need help the most? And so when you're struggling with weight, you're dealing with a lot of these things. So our job is to really dismantle all of that and intervene as close to that stress that's causing them to eat or drink off plan, right? And intervene as close to that moment as possible without shame, without guilt, without any of that. And we have to get there often. We're not a practice for everybody. We are a, ICU level care, intensive care level of metabolic management. That's what we do. It's so yeah, I have made the practice I wish I had, and now I'm continually proofing that practice. With the idea that there's so many barriers, and how do we break them down, and how do we eliminate them? So yeah, we've made the practice, and we've done amazingly well. We're in 48 states in the United States, but anybody anywhere could download our app. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, so that's the vision. And I have just an amazing team of people. Amy Igus, she's lost 220 pounds, kept it off. Brian Wiley is one of our lead health coaches. He's lost 100 pounds, kept it off for 15 years. Vic Bismagian lost 100 pounds, 7 years off. Tia Reed off of 20 different drugs and medications she no longer needed, and she's doing fantastic. All my the staff we have is just, they're awesome. We truly have you cannot have a team like we do. It's a 1 in a billion team. I'm really lucky, very, very lucky.
Well, telemedicine certainly seems to be breaking barriers and empowering patients and educating them, and I'm all about education and patient empowerment. This leads me to my final question, beautifully and succinctly. Where can people find out more about you online?
Yeah, just you could download the Toward Health app, like TOWARD Health, Toward Health. DrTro.com, spelled out DOCTORTRO.com. All the social handles are there. Dr Tro, same, spelled out. The podcasts, we got a podcast, Low Carb MD podcast, over 10 million downloads. Super proud about that. We have not had any sponsorships, no commercial interests. We've said no to $100,000 in ad revenue. Super proud about that one. That's, you can find us in any one of those places.
Well, I'll be sure to pop links to all of those in the notes for this episode. Dr. Tro Kalayjian, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed listening to your thoughts today. Well, thank you for tuning into this episode of the Happy Habit Podcast. If you enjoyed it or any of the previous episodes, show your support. Like, subscribe, and share news of this podcast with other people who you think might enjoy these episodes too. A reminder, we're also on YouTube. Become a subscriber over there. Remember, it is absolutely free. Until next time, stay happy.